The tap code was key to the communication and survival of Vietnam prisoners of war. For American soldiers imprisoned during the Vietnam War, the tap code was a secret way to communicate with each other without alerting the guards. This code consisted of a 5x5 matrix that prisoners could use to tap out letters and words. Here's a quick explanation from former prisoner of war Ron Maston.
They did it, they took the alphabet, threw out the letter K, and then made a 5x5 matrix of the remaining letters, and they spelled out every word. And if you wanted to use a K, you just substitute a C for the K. So across the top line, you'd have A, B, C, D, E, and the next line would be F, G, H, I, J, and then there's no K, so L, N, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
This code was simple and easy to use for prisoners, and new prisoners could usually learn it within their first day. The first series of taps would correspond with the row of the letter being used, while the second series of taps would correspond with the column.
It's like if you wanted to say hi, you tap 2, 3, 2, 4. Tap, 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 tap. That would signify H. Tap, 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 tap. That would be an I. So you just spelled out hi. So you spelled out every word.
Most historians believe the Vietnam War began in the 1950s. However, there were already uneasy tensions during the French colonial period during the 1800s. In June of 1950, the United States stepped up their assistance to France after identifying the Viet Minh as a communist threat. Nearly a decade later, in June of 1959, the first U.S. soldiers were killed in Vietnam, but America did not officially enter the war until 1964. In that same year, the first American prisoner of war, Commander Everett Alvarez Jr., was captured and placed in the Hanoi Hilton, the most infamous North Vietnamese prison. Alvarez was the first of roughly 776 American POWs that were eventually captured and imprisoned during the Vietnam War. Most of these prisoners were from the Air Force and had been shot down over Vietnam. However, there were still a handful of prisoners captured from smaller platoons on enemy land. The conditions inside of the prisons were horrific. Upon arrival at the prison, most prisoners were beaten by the prison guards in an effort to force information out of the captured. They were kept in isolation and beaten every day by the North Vietnamese in an attempt to get any information about the war. After the isolation, they were put into small concrete cells with the same poor food every day. They were given one t-shirt, one long-sleeve shirt, one pair of shorts, and one pair of pants. The American prisoners were kept in their cells all day and were never given any information about the war effort or news from home. The North Vietnamese also wanted to use their prisoners for propaganda. Some photos that were released from Vietnam made it seem like they treated imprisoned Americans with the utmost respect. However, this propaganda was just an attempt to gain support internationally and rid any rumors about mistreatment of prisoners. The lack of communication made the prisoners' spirits drop tremendously. They desperately needed a way to communicate with each other. The prisoners' morale and mental health would rapidly decline without communication and support from other prisoners. To do this, the prisoners would tap through the walls to each other. Carlyle Harris was the first prisoner to use the tap code. While in training, he saw the code in the classroom and asked if it was Morse code. His instructor told him that it was the tap code and taught him the code. After Harris was shot down by the North Vietnamese, he remembered the code and taught it to the other prisoners. To do this, Harris would slip the code to a different prisoner and tell him to memorize the code, then pass the note on to another prisoner. The code spread throughout the entire prison system whenever a prisoner was moved. When transferred prisoners got to the new prison, they taught the other prisoners the code in the same way. They used the tap code every day any way they could. Air Force Captain Pete Peterson quotes, "As it turns out, the code is very, very fast. Even if you just tapped with your finger or knuckle or your hand, you could pass a tremendous amount of information through the wall. To give you an idea, we passed Shakespeare through the wall. We passed movies, we passed our biographies and biographies of others we knew about. It was our entertainment. We talked or tapped on the wall for hours and hours into the day and night." The prisoners became incredibly proficient in the tap code and would often understand what was being tapped to them before it was finished. They tapped all the time whenever they could, being cautious to not get caught by the North Vietnamese guards.
Do you believe that the tap code was essential almost for the survival of many prisoners of war?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because, like I say, I think communications was the most important thing that kept us going. And the tap code was the primary way we communicated.